Good evening and welcome to this second part of the Arts and Culture Forum for Council District 1. If you're just joining us, I'm Heath Fox, Executive Director of the La Jolla Historical Society, whose mission is to make history relevant and meaningful to contemporary life and to serve as a resource and gathering place where residents and visitors explore history, art, ideas, and culture. We present rotating exhibitions, educational programs for youth and lifelong learners, maintain an archive for public research, and consult on historic preservation, serving the community of La Jolla, the city of San Diego, and the cultural tourists who visit from throughout Southern California and Northern Mexico, as well as national and international travelers. Visit us online at lajollahistory.org. We're extremely pleased to have all of the participants with us this evening. Thank you for attending this webinar. This is the third of 5 scheduled forums on arts and culture, one for each council position up for election this year, and we invite you to attend the remaining forums. We'd also like to say how grateful we are to all of those who organize these forums, the Balboa Park Cultural Partnership, the San Diego Regional Arts and Culture Coalition, and Arts and Culture San Diego. The core questions for the candidates are the same for those in all the district forums. It's now my pleasure to welcome our organizational representatives, and I'd like to invite them to introduce themselves. Debbie, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Heath. Hi, my name is Debby Buchholz, and I'm the Managing Director at La Jolla Playhouse. I'm also a very proud graduate of UC San Diego, so both La Jolla Playhouse and UC San Diego are in District 1. The Playhouse, in addition to the 6-play subscription season that I think most people know about us, actually is very active throughout the city of San Diego. Our pop tour, which is an education piece for K through 6, is travels in the spring usually, although this year it will be virtual, but travels in the spring throughout San Diego County, throughout all of the districts. Our Without Walls programming is, it lives in different places throughout San Diego, through the city. We have an active military outreach program. We are a staunch employer of a number of different people in the arts sector throughout San Diego. And we welcome, theatrical and other tourists to visit our productions on the UC San Diego campus throughout the year. And we look forward to being able to do that again soon. So that's the Playhouse.
Thank you. Stephanie, your turn.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Thompson. I'm a member of the board and chair of the communications committee for Bodhi Tree Concerts, an award-winning nonprofit performing arts ensemble that's based in La Jolla but performs all over San Diego. Bodhi Tree Concerts' mission is to perform intentional acts of kindness through music. And we do this by exclusively featuring local artists, programming diverse repertoire in a series of concerts each season, from jazz to classical to operettas, musicals, and more. And all the profits from those concerts are then donated to nonprofit charitable organizations, and we partner with a different one for each concert. This year, due to COVID, we've taken our concerts entirely online, and I urge everyone to check out what's coming up next at bodhitreeconcerts.org. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Stephanie. Will, thank you for participating in this forum. We're joined by representatives from arts and culture organizations in District 1 and from around the city. Before we start our questions, we'd like to give you up to 5 minutes to make an opening statement. What would you like to tell everyone about yourself and why you're running for office?
Thank you, everybody. Heath, Stephanie, and I really appreciate being here this evening. My name is Will Moore. I'm running for office in the City Council in District 1 here in San Diego, which is from about the edge of Pacific Highlands Ranch and a nice little crescent all the way down to La Jolla. And I'm glad to be here at the Arts Forum this evening because arts is a near and dear thing to my heart. I am a dad in Carmel Valley. I'm a small business lawyer, so I help people make deals, help people who aren't getting along very well get together. I think that'd be a useful skill to have down at City Hall, where sometimes people get to fighting and aren't able to resolve their problems as effectively as folks who have to solve their own problems every day might hope. I have been here, working on this campaign, hearing about issues ranging from, policing to housing to the environment, And one of the important issues for our society that gets left by the wayside sometimes is the arts. And I will tell you that my experience personally, I came up from a very poor background. I lived with my grandmother. We lived on her Social Security checks when I was a kid. Lived in one of the poorest neighborhoods in America. I got a scholarship to go to Georgia Tech. Did well there. Have always felt a compulsion to give back. Have traveled the world. I was a Peace Corps volunteer. I volunteered for the Peace Corps after finishing college at Georgia Tech. Went on to Columbia Law, got a law degree there, and I've been practicing for small business people and medium-sized businesses here in San Diego for the past decade and a half. And I'm going to tell you a story about my experience with the arts, and in fact, the arts community here in San Diego. I was never considered myself an arts guy until I was about probably 35. And what changed that, and I got the name of the museum wrong in a previous thing that we talked about, but what changed that was I went to a temporary exhibit, I think it was, and I saw one of these traveling paintings, which I think was a Van Gogh, at the Museum of Art in Balboa Park. And it just grabbed me and wouldn't let go. And I'm looking at the textures and the depth in a way that had never occurred to me before. And frankly, I just went in on a whim because I like going to museums, and went in on a whim and happened to get grabbed by this painting, which was outside of my field of interest, of the things that I thought were interesting at the time. And this was a new thing that brought me in because of that traveling exhibit. So we need all of these resources in all our communities to give people the opportunity to see beautiful things, to hear beautiful things, to see something that's thought-provoking. And since that time, it's actually become kind of a hobby of mine. So I take our vacations I take my son to places around the world, whether it be New York or London or Paris or Italy, or myself took such a trip to Spain to go to the museums and look at the great museums of the world, whether it be the Met or the Louvre or the various museums in like the Thyssen in Madrid, to look at the art and just really absorb the history and the depth of the culture that I just saw the tip of the iceberg at because of the programs we have here in San Diego. And that's expanded my son's view of the world far beyond what mine was at a similar age. And we need those sorts of programs, not just for the ones that we particularly like, but for the ones that we want to make sure are offered across the board to bring people in and let people know the rich breadth of the human experience. Because we all have, we need jobs, we need shelter, we need all of these things, but we also need art to help us experience the world in different ways so we understand each other a little better. And that's one of the important things that I want to help happen. And I want to make San Diego a place that people come to, not just because of the beach and not just because of the zoo. I like panda bears and I like the sun, but I also think that we need to be a destination that people want to come as tourists to say, hey, I do want to come to see the fantastic museums in Balboa Park, to see the wonderful plays that get first run at the La Jolla Playhouse and end up on Broadway. We can be that place. And San Diego has sometimes not aspired to be everything it could be, but we have the resources here to make it happen. And I think those resources are much better spent on something like that than just a commercial during the Super Bowl saying to come to San Diego. So that's my opening. I am throughout the rest of the campaign, we definitely talk a lot about getting people housed, getting homeless people off the street, making sure our environment's taken care of, and making this a place that small businesses can thrive, and obviously getting past the COVID crisis. But this is a very important group to me because of the breadth of the arts organizations that are involved here in the city and the potential for what we could be as an arts community if we really got that support across the board and from the city government.
Thank you, Will. Let's get straight into our questions.
Please.
Attendees at our first forum submitted a number of questions that we're asking all candidates. Additionally, we've asked our attendees today to add questions to the Q&A during this forum. Debbie, will you get us started, please?
I certainly will. Thank you, Heath. Will, arts and culture organizations are essentially small businesses, and like all small businesses, they've been hit very hard by the COVID-19 pandemic. But unlike for-profit businesses, we were unable to access the city's recent small business recovery funding. When we emerge from this pandemic, we are likely to see a truly devastated or severely hobbled arts and culture sector. There are immediate and longer-term recovery needs. So would you support city investment or a special recovery fund to assist the arts, culture, and creativity sector's recovery during the COVID-19 shutdown and future reopening, and to ensure that any funding or recovery plan for small businesses includes nonprofit organizations?
Yes. Well, let me take those two in turn. A separate fund, I don't know if a separate fund is something that's going to work and that's going to pencil out the right way. But I'm very interested in seeing if we can do that. But I can't make that promise because I don't think that's responsible to tell you something I don't know can happen. However, there is no reason that nonprofits should have been excluded from the existing and future assistance that the city provides. I am a lawyer. I represent small businesses. I represent nonprofits. Nonprofits and small businesses run the same way. And I like to explain to people the difference is not that great. You're still meeting payroll. You still have rent. You still have a service that you're providing. You still have somebody paying you to provide that service. The main difference is usually with a nonprofit, the money that you're getting paid is not coming from the people who receive the service. But that's really on a day-to-day basis the largest difference between nonprofits and for-profit businesses. There's no reason whatsoever that those organizations shouldn't also be included in the programs that help make up a disaster that hits all of us the same way. So absolutely, nonprofits, the arts organizations should be involved in being in the recovery programs going forward. I also think that insofar as they've been excluded, we need to try to make that up and fill in that gap. And if that is what the form of a special fund would take, I would support that.
Thank you. Stephanie, you have a very popular question from the attendees regarding capital reinvestment.
I do, Heath. Will, the city owns a number of arts and cultural facilities across the city, among them downtown theaters, Liberty Station buildings, and of course, Balboa Park. Many of these facilities have significant deferred maintenance and their surrounding infrastructure is badly underfunded. Do you support and will you commit to pushing for the creation of a viable action plan to fund Balboa Park deferred maintenance, infrastructure, and facilities, as well as increased support for city-owned cultural assets across the city?
Absolutely, we need a plan to make up our massive funding shortfall in the infrastructure realm. We have in every neighborhood and regarding every subject you could possibly imagine in the city of San Diego, crumbling holes, potholes, things falling down, things that are really looking well beyond their wear. And we need to address that very forthrightly here in the city. One problem that I certainly see, and I think it's not fair to try to address that by saying, oh yeah, we're absolutely going to fix that. We need to acknowledge that we are looking at a $300 million shortfall in the city's funding because of COVID. And we didn't have a particularly good plan for filling in our $4 billion deficit, infrastructure deficit, even before then. So I would support any effort that would get that infrastructure deficit taken care of. We definitely have places that are really capstones of the city that we want to be able to show off to people, that we want to bring in, that would help us generate more funds. And Balboa Park is certainly one of them, and the Arts District in La Jolla being another one. But throughout the city, we have these problems, and I do support getting that infrastructure deficit filled in as the best I can. I do want to be realistic about our constraints when we try to do that, but I will tell you, I will work every day towards making that a better situation so San Diego can be what it should be.
So, Will, here's another popular question. As you may know, 4 cents of every dollar of TOT raised by the city is dedicated to the promotion of the city. In 2012, the City Council passed a resolution called Penny for the Arts, which promised 1 cent of that 4 cent portion would go toward funding support for arts and culture programs and institutions. To date, however, funding for arts and culture has fallen far short of that goal, and every year we're forced to engage in fierce advocacy to secure even a fraction of that promised funding. Do you support fully funding the Penny for Arts and Culture Plan, which is 9.52% of TOT? And would you support an ordinance that clearly defines a maximum 4-year phased-in timeline and makes it a certain part of the budget process rather than being treated as a loose guideline?
I would support Penny for the Arts. I think that what we're trying to do with the TOT, especially that 4%, that 4 cent portion that we talk about as attracting people to San Diego, I do think, as I said earlier, that what we want to do is, have things people want to come see rather than commercials. Like you see these commercials like, come to beautiful Michigan. Anybody going to Michigan? Well, maybe I'll think about it now, but I'm not substantially more likely to go because you don't have what I'm looking for. You don't have something special that's different. But if we have something to talk about with our better arts funding, then people are more likely to come. So I think that Penny for the Arts does make sense. That was a good resolution. I think that if you're going to make resolutions like that, you need to back them up. I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say in 4 years, we're going to do the thing we said we would do in, I think it was 2015, 2012. So yeah, I would support that. I think that if we're looking for 9.5, funding at 5.5, while the raw number, the gross number stays the same, even as the revenues go up, so the percentage goes down. I don't think that's the way to do this, and I think that misses an opportunity of things we can do with the TOT.
Well, will you commit to always including achieving and maintaining Penny for Arts and Culture as a top priority in all budget discussions and in initial and
Yes.
revised budget memorandums?
Yes.
Outstanding. I think I speak for everyone here when I say we certainly look forward to secure and sustainable funding.
Yeah. Current events have had an influence on a number of the questions we've received. Stephanie, your next question, please.
Will, as part of the mayor's commitment to a city that works for all, the commission has made great strides to ensure that the resources it manages are distributed in an equitable manner. To support this, the commission has launched a diversity, equity, and inclusion assessment, a 3-part initiative to assess our successes and deficits and ensure that the commission is equipped to provide public sector work within the city's diverse communities. How would you work with the commission to ensure that access, equity, and diversity remain a priority for all neighborhoods?
And this is really a big deal. And this is a place where I'm going to have to be honest, and we're going to have to be honest with ourselves. We've struggled. San Diego has not done a good job at being a community that everybody feels like it's a part of. In the arts, the whole point of the arts is to communicate something that's within you to bring other humans in to your realm, so you can share a worldview. If everybody's very similar and from the same background, that doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense. To some extent, why bother? So we do need that diversity. And one of the things we've found, and we're finding this in a lot of different domains these days, is that the model where you go and say, oh, hey, you guys should join us with what we're doing with the environment or the arts or policing or whatever it is, that doesn't work. What you need, the way you need to approach inclusivity is have people come from their perspective and say, this is what I think arts are, even if that's not what we think or you think, or the people that are already in the room think arts are. So we need to expand our definition of who is included and what is included in what we're promoting as the arts. And I think that's the only way that we can really get that done. And it's not just, somebody at one of the environmental justice things said we should send environmental missionaries into underserved communities. And that's the opposite of the method that works for inclusivity. I am very fortunate in my life. I've had a very varied background. I've been, the only guy who looks like me in a lot of rooms. And so that has added a great deal of richness to my life. And I wouldn't trade the neighborhood where I was the only white kid growing up in the neighborhood for anything. It's the most valuable experience I've ever had. And we need to get more of that, because if we're not close to people we might think are a little different enough to learn that we're not, and not just theoretically, but really get into it, we will not have a single society. We will continue to have these divisions that are literally tearing America apart right now as we speak. And if we don't start it with the arts, where does it start? Because this is the only place, this is the logical place for it to start. And it's frankly the easiest place for it to start, because the arts people all know and recognize that you and I having different opinions about art is what makes art meaningful. So whether it's performance, whether it's visual, whether it's music, all of the different realms, we need to come together and include other people, include new people in the decision-making process. And I wish I could see the entire kind of Brady Bunch checkerboard of everybody that's at this meeting today. And I would hope that it would be a very diverse array of faces, but I fear that maybe it would not be. And that's something I think we need to constantly be aware of and talk to ourselves about.
There's one further question we'd like to address, and then if there's time, we'll go to questions from the audience. Debbie, will you take this one?
Certainly, Heath. Well, San Diego has an incredibly diverse, culturally and historically rich arts and cultural community, but it lacks the level of engagement and support from the city that many other world-class cities have enjoyed. Right now, there's an effort to create planning and engagement from the city to foster the strength of the arts, culture, and creativity community through a cultural plan and a cultural affairs department that would ensure planning is implemented. Do you support the creation of a cultural affairs department and the development of a citywide cultural plan that would elevate arts and culture as an industry critical to the economic health and quality of life in San Diego?
I would support the creation of a cultural plan and especially insofar as that process of planning, creating a cultural plan through that mechanism actually encourages and kind of forces us to get out into every community in San Diego, as a city plan would have the obligation to do. As far as a separate department, I have to just tell you the raw facts are, I'm not sure a separate department is something we can afford. I don't know what it would cost, and until I was able to pencil that out, I could not responsibly, as much as I want to say yes, I could not responsibly do that for you here today. And I don't think anybody else could responsibly do it, though they might have. But I would certainly be open to that. I think that this is an important industry, and as important as in any industry we have. And I definitely want to support the arts through the city with a plan that includes everyone in our arts community, and particularly includes arts organizations, because money is important. Arts organizations need to be regarded as we talk about business organizations, because of a lot of the regulations we put on small business. As a small business lawyer, I know the arts organizations are all pretty small businesses. None of you are Amazon or Coca-Cola. So we have to recognize that the burdens we put on you as small businesses, as operators, are also significant. We need to make sure we address those and make sure that they're scaled to your abilities to negotiate between the various regulations.
So it looks like we do have some questions in the Q&A, and I'll ask Stephanie and Debbie to select one or two of these to ask Will. And Stephanie, we'll start with you.
Okay, Will, here's a question. If you're the elected official, how will you be able to hold yourself accountable to your commitments to diversity, inclusion, equity, and accessibility?
How would I hold myself accountable to those commitments? Well, I have spent my entire life holding myself accountable to those exact commitments. I'm a returned Peace Corps volunteer. That's not something a person goes and does lightly. The first organization I joined when I came here to San Diego was the Urban League Young Professionals, just because I moved to Carmel Valley and it was not coming from Atlanta, Macon, New York. Carmel Valley did not look like I was accustomed to a neighborhood looking, and so I had to go get some friends who were more my speed that I was accustomed to. And so bringing different perspectives and a diversity of people into all of our conversations is central to what I'm doing as a candidate, as an elected representative. I will have a diverse staff. I will have people of color, gender, orientation. All of that is very important. I've already told folks that I'm talking to about staff that we're going to make sure we have a lot of different perspectives, because you make mistakes when you don't have people from different points of view around to tell you, hey, I can tell you that from the way I'm looking at it doesn't look so great. And so you want to have that in-house. So diverse staff. I personally am here specifically, one of the big reasons I'm running for this office is to bring kind of a new view of the folks who haven't always been represented. And so that's how I would hold myself accountable to that, because that's the way I've been accountable to that issue and diversity for my entire life.
I think I get one more. Well, how do you view the role of arts in public education? And where do you believe the dollars to fund these services and programs should come from, particularly as we recover from the pandemic in 2021 and beyond?
I think we made a major mistake about 25 years ago when we started to talk about education in terms of STEM. And we talk about science, technology, engineering, math, and that's fine. Obviously, those are things that enable us to even be having this conversation right now. But when you create a generation of engineers that don't have the cultural context and don't have the philosophical or arts context to know why they're building these machines, then you lose your way. And there's not really a point in having all this great science, engineering, and technology if we don't know how that improves our lives as humans. Now, we've all got these machines. Are they, and they do great things. Are we doing better? Are you happier? I don't think we particularly are. Sometimes when somebody overemphasizes STEM type of discussions, I said, well, if that's, do you want Zuckerbergs? Because that's how you get Zuckerbergs. And that's how you get the guys who build Facebook without thinking about how it actually affects the society that they live in. We have to get away from this fetishization of math and engineering and get back towards educating people on the scale that makes us human, that will make us be able to live our lives in a fulfilling way for the next, if you graduated 18, 70, 80 years after that. And if you don't have an arts education, if you don't learn a skill, because, writing those math problems on the paper is great, but learning to play a trumpet, learning to, recite a sonnet, learning to write a poem, those are creative. And creation is what you're trying to go for with what all that math is for. And if you don't have that creative instinct nurtured and you just have the technical instinct nurtured, then you don't become a full person. And we need to have those arts funded in our schools by the school system, not just exclusively in the rich neighborhoods where folks like me in Carmel Valley can contribute an extra $1,000 to the school during fundraising week so we can have an elementary school band. We need everybody to be able to have access to that heritage we have as humans. We have an obligation to pass it on.
Well, I'm sure everybody would like to continue this discussion, but we are running a bit short on time. So Will, we'd like to give you the opportunity for a closing statement. The floor is yours for up to 5 minutes.
I'd like to say that this group is, first of all, one of the best groups that I've talked to. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, you're talking about expanding the horizons of everybody that lives in this city and expanding the horizons of the city itself. And that's what we talk about when we talk about arts. Two, I go to so many meetings where people constantly talk about what they don't want to have happen. Don't let this change. Don't do this. Leave this alone. I'm against this project or whatnot. And as by really the nature of being an arts community, it's always about change. Once you're doing something that's not different, you're copying, you're not making art. And that's what I want to envision for San Diego in the next decade, because we are choosing a direction for the next decade. And as we move into the 2020s, we're going to be in a new era. I'm 47 years old right now. I've lived in 3 eras. I've lived during the Cold War. I woke up and went to junior year of high school one day in November of 1989. That was over. The Berlin Wall was down. Now we're in the post-Cold War era. Woke up one day in New York City on a Tuesday in September in 2001 when I was in law school, and we're in another era. And that era has lasted until now. This COVID crisis and a couple of things that are going on the national scene, those are the sorts of crises that change eras. We are going to be in a new world. And I don't frankly think the last 19 years were that great for anybody. And I think we need to rethink what we're doing. And I think this community, with its creativity, with its ability to encourage people to think differently, to find the common humanity between ourselves, this community has an opportunity to lead us into a better place. And I want to support this community. I want to support the arts. I want to support a diverse vision for the arts and bring a lot of people in to do some really wonderful things in this town. And I want San Diego to grow and become the great city that I know it can be. And I hope to have your help. My name is Will Moore.
Thank you very much, Will. We really appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation with you this evening. And as a reminder, Will, we're sending a related survey that we'd ask you to complete and return to. Thanks also to Debbie and to Stephanie, and for all of our attendees and for your questions to this important discussion. The next forum is for District 5, and it is scheduled for September 25th at 2 p.m. So please add that to your calendars, and we'll look forward to seeing you then. Thank you, and good night.